Now, approaches, hands down, just in an incredible way, change the sound and quality of your improvisational lines. It really gives you that jazzy feel to your improvisation. They can be kind of difficult, though, to use and understand. So let's start by just understanding what an approach is. An approach is just meaning that there's some way in which you're getting to something, okay? So if you were going to approach your car, right, you might go around the driver's side. You might come from the passenger side over to the driver's side. You might come from the trunk and then go over to the driver's side. There's many different ways of approaching and getting into your vehicle. You have a destination, the driver's side door, right? You're trying to get in the car to drive it, but you could be coming from all different directions of that, to that vehicle. Same thing with notes on the keyboard. Let's say that you have any note. I'm going to just pick G. Now, if I want to get to that G, I can come from above, so I can be coming down from above the note, which is just any note, like from here up, or I can be coming from any note below the note. So I can be approaching it from below, I can be approaching it from above. Now, there are certain approaches that work really well, that are very common. I talk about a lot of these in the Basics of Improvisation lesson. And there's also some more improvisation lessons in the site in which I deal with approaches and break it down much more. But kind of quickly right now, the common ones that you have is half step from above or half step from below. So you go a half step above and then you resolve to the note, or a half step below and you resolve to the note. You have whole step from above, whole step from below. You have double chromatic from above, double chromatic from below, and then you can also do combinations. You do whole step from above, double chromatic from below, half step from above, double chromatic from below, half step below, double chromatic from above. Okay? So there's all of these different ways of putting together these approaches. Now, I might have gone through that a little bit too fast where you might not be able to fully grasp it. That's all right for right now. The main thing is just start to understand the concept of approaches. Here's my target. I got to get to that note. So how do I get to that note? Here, I'm getting to it by a half step from above. So I'm going to get to G, but I'm going to start a half step above G first, then I resolve down to the G. Or I could go a whole step from above G and then resolve it down to G. Remember, my target is G. All right, what about from below? Well, I can do a double chromatic, so that's two chromatic notes that resolve to G. Now, if I apply this to some lines, take a listen to these lines. Okay? Now, just a brief word about fingering. I put my thumb on the B flat. It's not usually the best thing to do. However, when you're improvising, you might find yourself having to put the thumb on a black note. If you do, be careful you don't really slam down on it. All right? You really want to make sure that you play it with the same velocity as your other fingers. Let me just play this again for you. So still ending on that sixth of the F, but notice now I have this upbeat, and I'm also utilizing these approaches. Ba-dee, 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 ba-da, da, ba-dee, ba-da. Notice what I'm doing is I start with this approach, which is that A sharp, okay? That's a half step from below the B. And notice I'm doing this approach on the upbeat. Ba-dee. The reason I wouldn't normally do it on a downbeat is because sorry, that was a little too heavy. I'm trying to prove a point, but if I have a G7 chord, when I play that approach note on the beat, I'm giving it much more weight. When I play it off the beat or on an upbeat, it has less weight to it, which means that that tension is not going to pop out to our ears like, whoa, wait a minute, that really sounds bad. If I do this versus this, okay? You hear that I've hit the chord first. Yes, there's tension, but it quickly gets resolved. Whereas if I do this, that tension smacks right into that chord right on the downbeat. So those downbeats are real powerful. So those approaches work especially well on the upbeat. So what I did is, so you hear all the rest of this is chord tones. The ba-dee, ba-dee, ba, root, 7, 5th, 3rd, right, of G minor 7. Still that rhythm, rhythm number 2, still rhythm 1 and then rhythm 2. Ba, dee, ba. Okay, there's your root, third root. Right. Ba, dee, ba, dee. Now, you could say, well, that's C going to the D of the F6. That's kind of an approach as well. Yeah, you could say that if you wanted to label it that way, but in reality, it's just going back to the chord tone of C, all right? But if you wanted to label it a whole from below, going up to the D for F, that's fine as well. Now, we could also do some other stuff here. I didn't write this out, but I could do that double chromatic going to the D. It's a nice sound as well, isn't it? All right. Now, the second example I have of this really starts to sound pretty hip. Listen to this one. Oh, sorry. Isn't that a cool sound? Now, let's break that down, what we're doing here. Same rhythm number. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm doing rhythm number 3. And then in the second measure, I'm going back and doing rhythm number 3 from the first group of rhythms. There's no upbeat in this one. It's just all downbeats. So you see what I'm doing is I'm starting on the 5th, and then I do this half from above, half from below, because I'm targeting that B natural. And notice that I hit that B natural where? On the beat. And I'm just going right on down the chord tones. D, ba, D, ba. And then G minor 7. D, ba, D. See what I did here? I did that double chromatic getting down to the F. You could also say that that's the chord tone of G, right? And this is just a half from above going to the 7th of the G minor. That's fine as well, however you want to look at it. In fact, I label it as half above to the 5th of G minor, and then 3rd root of C7, and then half above to the dominant 7th there, to the flatted 7th. And then I resolve now down to the A of the F6, because remember that A, the 3rd, sounds much more solidified with the chord. So that line again. Notice also the articulation that I'm using. Right? I don't have a lot of time to get into that right now, but when you're practicing your scales, you can practice that. You can really accentuate that. Accentuate and accent those upbeats, all right? And then when you apply it to your lines, now that's a little bit much, but for right now, you kind of get the point. You can hear what it is that I'm talking about. All right, so now we've come quite a long way from the beginning of just using your basic melody and then using your chord tones. Now with these approaches, you really start to unlock a lot of new creative possibilities for your lines. Now, you can come up with your own stuff as well. Instead of doing something like this, what if I did... I could have done that as well, right? That's a little bit different. So there I'm just changing the first 3 notes. I'm just changing how I approached that B. And that's what I suggest you do. Take these examples. Don't try coming up with a brand new example right away. Just change the first part of the example, right? Or change one little piece in the measure. Work on just trying to change how you got into that approach, right? Remember, the approach is you're looking for a target note, and then you're trying to approach into that target note. As we talk about guide tones in the next section, it's going to kind of help you as well with some different ideas. So I'll see you in the next part, all right?